Can you imagine what will happen if the Yellowstone supervolcano explodes? Avalanches of red-hot ash would sweep in all directions from the volcano, destroying everything in their path. The ash clouds will reach speeds of up to 200 miles per hour. The ash will be very hot, up to 1500 degrees Fahrenheit, which is twice as hot as a pizza oven. I would not want to be near the volcano at the time of its eruption. All life would be destroyed within a radius of 750 miles. America would turn into Pompeii. It will be a disaster for the entire planet. The ash is very sharp and toxic. It will remain suspended in the air for years, and it will be very dangerous to inhale it. The resulting acid rains will start to fall. But worst of all, the volcano's ash emissions will block the sun's rays from warming the Earth's surface and will plunge the entire planet into a volcanic winter and night. The average atmospheric temperatures will drop by 27 degrees Fahrenheit. Within a matter of months, an ice age will literally be upon us. The explosion of Yellowstone will also cause the detonation of other supervolcanoes. A series of magnitude 10 earthquakes will sweep across the planet. It will be an instant death for billions of people and the end of our technogenic civilization. It is believed that the frequency of Yellowstone eruptions is about once every 500 to 800,000 years. The last eruption of this magnitude happened more than 630,000 years ago. Could it be that there are still tens of thousands of years to go before the eruption? We have begun to look into this issue, given that it's not only a national but a supranational threat to all of humanity. In December of 2022, Olga Schmidt, president of the Creative Society USA nonprofit corporation, published a post on her Twitter page that the Yellowstone caldera would keep the whole world in fear in the near future. To which the USGS, that is the U.S. Geological Survey, published an official response that Yellowstone is not showing any signs of unrest and is at normal levels of activity. Now, we're going to tell you about the results of our independent investigation, which served as a basis for the Twitter post. Is Yellowstone as good as the USGS assures us it is? Let's start with the official statements from the USGS article, How Can We Tell When a Volcano Will Erupt?, which lists notable precursors to an eruption. Let's go through each point regarding the Yellowstone caldera over the last decades. Point 1. An increase in the frequency and intensity of felt earthquakes. We built a graph of earthquakes in the Yellowstone caldera area, according to the USGS data, and we're shocked by the severity of the situation. The graph showing the number of earthquakes has an increasing trend. A reasonable question arises. Maybe the number of sensors is increasing. The answer is no. We found out that for many years, the location of seismic sensors in the Yellowstone caldera allows us to record all earthquakes with very small magnitudes, even just above zero. It turns out that the very first point of the USGS article on the precursors to an eruption, namely an increase in the frequency of earthquakes, is already happening. We have also noticed that in recent years, the number of earthquakes of magnitudes 4 and below has been increasing in leaps. This is exactly an increase in the intensity of earthquakes. The leaps occur because magma enters the chamber in pulses, in portions under pressure from deep within the mantle. Then, we decided to see if there is a behavioral dynamics by depth of earthquakes and found that in 2010, the greatest number of earthquakes was registered at a depth of 11 kilometers, while in 2022, it was already at a depth of 5 kilometers. In other words, the change in earthquake depths tells us that Yellowstone's underground activity is approaching the surface. As magma ascends, protective mechanisms are being formed. Rocks collapse above the zones of magma intrusion and earthquakes occur. The fact that earthquakes now occur at a depth of 5 kilometers means that magma at this depth has already eaten away the Earth's crust. Pure mathematics. Over 12 years, magma has passed 6 kilometers, which is more than half of the way. And how long will it take for magma to travel the rest of the path? Many times faster, because the events develop exponentially. So right now, we are observing an increase in the number and intensity of earthquakes in correspondence with the first point. Isn't it interesting that the USGS doesn't see any threat on the basis of its own data? Point 2. Noticeable steaming or fumarolic activity. Geysers act as a cooling mechanism for volcanoes. They function through the release of superheated water vapor. There are more than 10,000 active thermal features across the territory of the Yellowstone volcano. Geysers are common for this area, but Yellowstone has seen anomalies in recent years. The Steamboat Geyser in the Norris Valley, which is the tallest and the most powerful geyser in the world, used to erupt but once a year. But between 2018 and 2020, it erupted 48 times a year. This indicates an increase in subsurface heating precisely in that area, which in turn raises the risk of a Yellowstone eruption by 50 times within such a short time frame. This is a catastrophic situation. Geyser activity is controlled by the rise of magma. It can be tracked by earthquakes. We've collated the data and saw that most geysers in the Norris Valley become active after strong quake swarms. This suggests that new surges of magma cause earthquakes, which in turn cause the activation of geysers, including the Steamboat. Right now, the most active area for earthquakes and geysers in all of Yellowstone is the Norris Valley. It is known that the last super eruption of Yellowstone 640,000 years ago began in the Norris Valley. And this is precisely where the number of earthquakes and geyser activity are increasing. And this is alarming. What about geyser activity in other parts of the park, you may ask? We found that in 2018, there was a synchronization of geyser activity, when most of the geysers of the entire caldera simultaneously began to erupt many times more often. This means the geysers began to release more heat. Geyser activity still remains high. The sudden change in geyser activity in recent years is an alarming signal. Geysers are already synchronizing across and around the caldera. The second point is confirmed. Point 3. Subtle swelling of the ground surface. Under normal circumstances, the rate of surface uplift or lowering at the Yellowstone is between 2 to 4 centimeters per year. However, in 2013-2014, there was a sudden 5-fold increase in the uplift rate, reaching up to 15 centimeters per year in the Norris Valley area. During the same period, there were occurrences of earthquake swarms, anomalous behavior among bison, and instances of melting asphalt. It was around this time that the Yellowstone volcano was very close to eruption. This caused great concern in the society. It was after this that most of the monitoring data on Yellowstone began to be withheld from the public. We became interested in the issue of surface uplift and learned that the catastrophic eruption of Mount St. Helens in 1980 began just 1 month after the uplift. As early as in 2013, there occurred a sharp uplift in Yellowstone. And this can happen again at any moment, and no one knows how it will end. The third point remains a matter of debate. Point 4. Small changes in heat flow. It turns out that Yellowstone radiates 30% more heat than the rest of the continent. It's like a blast furnace of North America, and coal is constantly being thrown into its combustor. Since the 2000s, the emergence of new thermal areas has been observed. Here are some examples of anomalous overheating of the Earth's surface. 2003, new region in the Norris area. Ground temperature increased to 94 degrees Celsius, 200 degrees Fahrenheit. The vegetation immediately died. Some geysers boiled away and dried up. 2018, in the area of Lake Tern, over 3 hectares of forest died. Trees were charred. The surface temperature was 60 to 80 degrees Celsius or 140 to 176 degrees Fahrenheit. In 2014, there was a peak in the melting of asphalt roads. In recent years, eyewitnesses note that in winter, the snow melted in some areas due to overheating of the soil. Instead of a small change in heat flow, we observe extreme heating of the soil. Point 4 confirmed. Point 5. Changes in the composition or relative abundances of fumarolic gases. There has been a lot of media hype around helium-4, that there is a lot of it in the Yellowstone area. However, it turned out that another indicator is important for the prediction of the eruption: the isotopic ratio of helium-3 to helium-4. It is strange that little attention is carelessly paid to it, although this particular indicator rises sharply before an eruption. Based on scientific works published in various years, we have built a graph displaying the ratio of helium-3 to helium-4. It grew from 15.8 in 1985 to 17 in 2003, with areas of abnormally high values located in the Norris Valley and in the active part of the caldera. Apparently, the same value of 17 was found in mineral inclusions from the past Yellowstone super eruption. It turns out that the current ratio of helium-3 to helium-4 has reached a critical level that could trigger an eruption. Why is the USGS silent about this? We have found this information in scientific articles. Don't they know that? Just before the eruption, there is a sharp release of volcanic gases, a few weeks, days, or hours before the event. This is an accurate, short-term indication of the beginning of an eruption. Therefore, now it is necessary to carefully monitor the emissions of all other gases besides helium. We know for sure that there are sensors in the Yellowstone area that measure gas emissions. However, now their readings are not available to all people. Why has the USGS shut down online gas monitoring and it is not available to everyone now? However, even according to the data we have found, indeed, there has been a change in the composition of gases. The 0.5 is confirmed. Interim conclusion. We went through the entire list of precursors to an eruption outlined in the USGS article and were shocked at the results. All of these signs are being observed in Yellowstone. However, the article has a postscript. Precursors can continue for weeks, months, or even years before eruptive activity begins, or they can subside at any time and not be followed by an eruption. All these signs are consequences of the activation of the volcano. So there is such a postscript. Yes, the volcano has been dormant for thousands of years, but now it is preparing to erupt. And for the last 20 years, it has been happening with alarming intensity. Then what is the trigger for the eruption of the Yellowstone volcano, you may ask? Experts agree that the amount of melt fraction in a chamber is a critical parameter. Scientific models suggest that the critical melt fraction at which the volcano is likely to erupt is between 35 and 50%. How much critical melt fraction is there now? According to some 2022 estimates, it's about 20%. However, according to estimates from 2010, it's 32% melt. The numbers differ quite significantly. The estimation of the amount of melt is provided indirectly and depends on the method of calculation, since it cannot be measured directly. Assuming the 2010 estimates are accurate, then the current melt fraction in the chamber must be already enough for an eruption. How can we know that the volcano is already preparing for an eruption? Maybe there are some other signs of activation. Point 6, which is not in the USGS list. After analyzing data from recent volcanic activity at the Yellowstone caldera, we've found another important sign of an impending eruption. Recently, there has been a reaction to deep focus earthquakes in remote regions. This is what independent Yellowstone researcher Mary Greeley brings to our attention. In January 2023, Yellowstone experienced tremors as a result of earthquakes at a depth of over 600 kilometers in Argentina. Then, in February 2023, a series of devastating earthquakes in Turkey triggered a chain reaction in Yellowstone. Now, the impact is no longer being transmitted through the Earth's crust. Instead, it is transmitted directly through the magma, and that affects Yellowstone. If now there is a direct impact of distant events through the magma, consequently, the magma pressure in the volcano is high enough to react, which means it is ready to erupt. 12,000-year cycle of cataclysms and its impact on the volcano. There has never been such a reaction to distant events before. So why did it appear? Supervolcanoes erupt every 12,000 years during the cycle of cataclysms. 12,000 years ago, Campi Flagre. 24,000 years ago, Topo. Each time, these are catastrophic events for the inhabitants of the Earth. And recently, we have entered a cycle of such devastating cataclysms. The cycle occurs because of changes in the planet's core, and as a consequence, because of the rise of magma. In 95 and 2014, there were peaks of seismic activity for those areas that are directly related to deep magma sources. These are regions of the mid-ocean ridges, areas near the Antarctic plate boundaries, and hotspots. In these areas, deep magma acts as a link between the core and the Earth's crust. When magma ascends from the core, these very regions will be the first to react. This is exactly what we observed with the upsurge in seismic activity in '95 and 2014. Yellowstone is also connected with a hotspot, a deep magma chamber. As a result, we see a similar reaction in an increase of seismic activity during the same period. So we can already see that along with the main signs of volcano activation mentioned earlier, Yellowstone is also reacting to the current 12,000-year cycle. Let's go back to the beginning, when we also said that it has a period between super eruptions. This is the period of preparation of the magma chamber. Now, the current cycle of cataclysms aligns with the time when the magma chamber of Yellowstone is already ready to erupt. If the process is not stopped, Yellowstone is sure to explode in this cycle. And the USGS knows this, but they keep silent and hide the data. So all signs point to the fact that the supervolcano is preparing to erupt. According to geological data, the volcano has been preparing for hundreds of thousands of years, while the activation and transition to eruption happens very quickly. The magma chamber had been in a state of preparation for 640,000 years. Within the last 20 years, we have been observing signs of activation, and there are very few years left before disastrous cataclysms of the 12,000-year cycle begin. You may ask, what can trigger an eruption ahead of time? A strong earthquake, including a deep focus earthquake, can be a trigger to an eruption. We know that the number of earthquakes is currently increasing. Consequently, the risk of eruption is increasing as well. As of today, the threat of nuclear weapons use is high. It is well known that a nuclear explosion is equivalent to an earthquake of magnitude ranging from 5 to 8.5. This will serve as the same trigger for the Yellowstone to erupt. Yellowstone has a connection with China and Italy. According to mathematical calculations, if a magnitude of 7 earthquake or a nuclear explosion of comparable magnitude occurs in a particular province of China or Italy, then, depending on when and where exactly it occurs, it can cause Yellowstone to explode. Point 7. The indicator of 100% probability eruption. Another critical factor that is highly likely to trigger an eruption is the slowing down of the planet's rotation. Currently, the rotation of the planet is accelerating. This happens due to cosmic influences on the planet's core that occur every 12,000 years. The acceleration of the planet's rotation is only the first stage. Then the second stage will follow, a subsequent slowing down of the planet's rotation. During this stage, enormous excess energy will accumulate inside the planet, leading to uncontrolled heating of magma and, as a consequence, a sharp increase in pressure. And this will inevitably cause the supervolcano explosion at a critical moment. If Yellowstone explodes, then there's almost 100% probability that Japan's supervolcano Ira will explode as well. In that case, humanity will cease to exist long before 2036. Conclusions. Based on the trends of the planet's rotation, the process of slowing down is about to begin. And in the next 2 years, the Yellowstone caldera will really cause widespread fear around the world. All this was mentioned in the video published on the Creative Society platform, which was discussed by Olga Schmidt in her post on Twitter. Let's go back to the USGS response. They write the following: Yellowstone is not showing any signs of unrest and is at normal levels of activity. There is no indication of any trend towards any sort of eruption. This conclusion is shared by volcanologists worldwide who study Yellowstone and other caldera systems around the globe. After analyzing the data, we realized the gravity of the situation. But why does the USGS insist that everything is all right with the volcano? Do we have a reason to trust the scientists who reassure us? After all, the issue is extremely serious and our lives depend on it. Every month, they publish reports on Yellowstone activity. We've noticed that data on gases is not publicly available. If you go to the website with the temperature sensors, it turns out that most of the sensors don't work and don't display the temperature. According to an independent researcher, Mary Greeley, There are many more earthquakes registered on the seismograms than what is shown on the USGS website. Moreover, at the forum Global Crisis, Our Survival is in Unity, a group of analysts of the Creative Society Project presented evidence that the main seismic services, including the USGS, manipulate data. Can we trust the USGS in the matter of the catastrophic eruption of Yellowstone? Right now, the volcano is not erupting yet, as is stated by USGS, but we can see that it has been preparing for an eruption for the past 20 years. We understand that the data we have analyzed is incomplete, but even based on them, we can clearly see that the volcano will inevitably erupt, since Yellowstone is about ready for a super eruption, for which it has been preparing for 640,000 years. And this moment coincides with the 12,000-year cycle of cataclysms that we have entered. In the coming years, the Yellowstone supervolcano will cause much fear to people on Earth with its activity. So why are the world's reputable volcanologists, in accordance with the USGS's Twitter response, jeopardizing their reputation by hiding the truth? Everything is very simple. An eruption of such a scale would result in the death of billions of people worldwide. It is already high time to raise the alarm. But who will take the responsibility to do this? Why are scientists silent? The answer is simple. If a volcano does erupt, everyone will die. And then scientists will not have to be accountable. And if the eruption doesn't occur, it means they were right all along. In the consumerist format, there is no way out of this situation. We won't be able to do anything about the Yellowstone eruption and save humanity. Only in the creative format of society will we be able to do everything to know about the eruption of any volcano in advance, and even be able to reliably use caldera depressurization technologies to prevent an eruption, instead of activating the volcano. But the most important thing is that we'll be able to save the lives of billions of people. We are telling the truth about the high probability of Yellowstone's eruption in the next few years, because we are not financially interested and do not risk losing our careers. We speak out because we want to live, and we offer a way out. The only viable measures at this point that each person can take is to learn more about the Creative Society Project and support it by actively spreading information about it. Only in this way can we prevent catastrophic eruptions of supervolcanoes on the planet. Join us, and you will be sure for your future and the future of your loved ones.